Hi, it's Gwyn and welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all well. With just a couple of days now before the release of Ringo's new album, Look Up, which is his first journey into country waters in many, many years, I thought it long overdue, and to get me into the mood, I would listen to Beaucoups of Blues, his first country album. So Beaucoups of Blues was released on the 25th of September 1970 in the UK, and this was just 6 months after the release of his first solo album, Sentimental Journey, which hadn't fared very well either critically or commercially. Ringo had always harboured ambitions to be that country singing cowboy from his very earliest days, in fact. And the idea for a country album was cemented when he went to pick up Pete Drake from the airport to join in with the sessions for George's All Things Must Pass album. Legend has it that Pete Drake was very impressed with the collection of country music that Ringo had in his car. Ringo asked Pete whether or not he'd be interested in collaborating on a country album, which he certainly was. I think Ringo's initial idea was that Pete and assorted musicians would come to the UK to record an album, but Pete said that the Nashville way was to record everything locally. Pete then arranged for the cream of Nashville musicians and songwriters to collaborate in producing and writing bespoke material for Ringo's album. The album was recorded at Music City Recorders Studio in Nashville over a 3-day period in late June 1970. Engineering duties were managed by Scotty Moore, who was Elvis Presley's guitarist, and Pete Drake himself took on producing role. Like its predecessor, Sentimental Journey, the album unfortunately would get very little chart success, but critically, retrospective reviews have been kinder on Beaucoups of Blues, and many consider it to be one of his better albums. But perhaps the commercial failure of the album has scarred Ringo in some way and prevented him from returning on a regular basis to the country genre, although he has dabbled from time to time. But let's rewind and see what we think now of Beaucoups of Blues. So the album opens with Beaucoups of Blues, the title track, which is a lilting lament that perfectly suits Ringo's mournful vocal, and Pete Drake adds a fabulous steel guitar accompaniment. If the backing vocals sound familiar to you, well, it's because it's from the Jordanaires, who were Elvis Presley's backing band in terms of vocal contribution, and also DC Fontana, who was Elvis's drummer, contributed to the track, so giving the track very much a feel of some of those early Sun recordings. Track 2 is Love Don't Last Long. This is a purposeful ballad and incorporates both fiddle and harmonica to great effect, and again the Jordanaire treatment to backing vocals is very much to the fore. Perhaps more than any other track on the album, Fastest Growing Heartache in the West really does demonstrate just how well Ringo's vocal suits the country genre. Again, we've got steel guitar and fiddle taking on the major accompaniment duties on this track, which is really a good track. Without Her is the 4th track on the album, and this is another mournful lament and probably one of the weaker tracks on the album, to be fair, but it does have some nice backing vocals which support Ringo ably through the song. Woman of the Night is the next track, and I've got to confess, this is one of my favourites on the album. There's some fabulous harmonica playing by Charlie McCoy, and it's a more purposeful tune, which ups the tempo somewhat, and I think is very welcome at this point in the album. Side 1 closes with I'd Be Talking All the Time, which steps along nicely and pushes Ringo's vocals a little more than some others do on the album, and with close vocal support offered by the Jordanaires, this is a good side 1 closer. $15 Draw opens side 2, and this is a fabulous way to open the second side of the album. Again, one of my favourites on the album as a whole, with some superb guitar work which goes throughout the whole track. Wine, Women and Loud Happy Songs is the next track, and while being nice enough, it doesn't really push the boundaries too much and is probably one of the weaker tracks on the album. I Wouldn't Have You Any Other Way is track 3, and this is a duet with Jeannie Kendall. To be honest, I think this is a little bit too slow for Ringo and is not perhaps sequenced very kindly in respect to the whole of the album. And I have to say that the shared vocals are not too complimentary for my ears. Loser's Lounge is the 4th track, and it's a welcome upping of the tempo with more harmonica by Charlie McCoy. This is really a great track and is perfectly sung by Ringo with quite a lot of gusto. The penultimate track is Waiting. Pete Drake really shines in what is one of the better, slower numbers on the album, and Ringo finds a very comfortable groove. The final track on the album is Silent Homecoming, which is a little bit of an oddity, to be honest. There are drumming breaks which are very much to the fore and is quite an accomplished album closer, but the song is really highlighted by the narrative of the song, which is about a soldier's body returning to his grieving widow, and a poignant reminder of the time in which the album was recorded during the height of the Vietnam War. Now, there are 2 tracks which were recorded during the sessions but didn't actually make it onto the album. The first is Coochie Coochie, which was featured as the B-side to Beaucoups of Blues when it was released as a single in the US. Now, personally, I think this would have been a really fabulous addition to the original album. It's a more pacey romp with some great pedal steel guitar, harmonica and fiddle, all dueling as the track fades out. I think it's a really fabulous track. The second unreleased track is Nashville Jam, and really does highlight what fabulous musicians were taking part in the sessions. It is really, I guess, just an unrestrained country blues jam, which kind of jettisons the shackles and cruises along, highlighting the instruments that most prominently feature on the album: fiddle, harmonica and pedal steel guitar. From my point of view, this really should have been on the album too. So, it had been many years since I'd played this album. The dust had settled quite thickly on it, to be honest. But I thoroughly enjoyed my wander down the country lanes of Nashville with Ringo, and I thought the album was really, really good, and leaves me looking forward to Look Up, which arrives in just a couple of days' time. Now, the album was originally released on the 25th of September 1970, and just a few short weeks later, Apple put out an announcement that Ringo was to do a follow-up to this album. Well, it's 55 years of that announcement, and we are eventually going to get Ringo's second country album, and I'm really looking forward to it. In terms of Beaucoups of Blues, though, I thought it was a really good album, but I think the sequencing wasn't quite right, and I think there was an overemphasis on some of the slower tunes, which I think could have been really enhanced if Ringo had chosen to include both Coochie Coochie and also the Nashville Jam, which I think would have elevated the album. But hey, that's just my opinion. What's yours? Why don't you put your comments down below, and I look forward to seeing what you think of not just Beaucoups of Blues, but also what your expectations are of Look Up. But that's about all for now. I look forward to bringing you news and a full review of Look Up when it comes out. But until then, it's bye for now.